Alright, so I got an absolutely amazing clip here for you guys from none other than the intellectual giant of the right, Ben Shapiro, who is explaining to us how actually, for some reason, you want the wealthiest people within society to run for office and to hold government positions because something that will get rid of the political corruption that is baked within our system here. So let's go ahead and try to watch through this clip. I'm gonna have to pause it a million times because he, packs together so many different insane points in this, but let's just go ahead and start off here. He's talking about the race between John Fetterman and Dr. Oz, where Dr. Oz has been rightfully blasted as an out-of-touch elitist. So let's go ahead and jump into this.
But the real campaign issue in Pennsylvania, according to everybody, is Dr. Mehmet Oz is an elitist. He's an elitist. And we know that if you earn money in the United States, this makes you unqualified for office. So, sure, the original founders of the country...
Okay, we're going to have to pause it there because he's going to make another follow-up point there that's just absolutely awesome. But on the first point here, okay, Dr. Oz is an elitist. I mean, this is a guy who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, basically made that money by being a snake oil salesman who was propped up by like Oprah Winfrey, got his famous show going, the Dr. Oz show, made millions and millions of dollars off of that. Now this guy, he has like, upwards of over 10 properties or homes or whatever definition that Dr. Oz wants to give. I mean, this is a millionaire out-of-touch elitist who really isn't even from the state of Pennsylvania. And so the John Fetterman campaign has been effectively and accurately labeling him as basically an out-of-touch elitist carpetbagger who's coming into Pennsylvania and not representing the interests of average working class Americans, but is trying to represent the interests of his own class, the millionaire and billionaire class. So that's just an accurate descriptor of who Dr. Oz is and why he's doing so poorly in this election. But it's also kind of funny because like the whole conservative shtick is to be railing against the wealthy elites within society, the corrupted elites within the government who are ruining average working class people's lives. I mean, that's basically like summed up the 2016 Trump campaign. And now you have a conservative commentator here, Ben Shapiro, who's directly contradicting that or, completely going against what he would usually try to narrativize in a situation like this and basically just admitting that no, conservatives do in fact serve the interests of the elites, and so Dr. Oz is the perfect type of candidate for them. So he continues here with another amazing point.
So, sure, the original founders of the country tended to be overwhelmingly wealthy men because, again, the idea here is that if you don't want people in politics who are demagogues, then it's good for them to have an outside source of income. You want to...
Okay, so we're going to have to pause it again here. Okay, so hold on. You said the founders of the country, the founders of the United States were overwhelmingly wealthy people. Yes, that's 100% true, but follow-up question here, Ben. How did those guys make their wealth? How were George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, how did they get their wealth? Okay, was it like, accumulated through just hard work and perseverance and a free market system? No, these were literal slave owners, okay? He is describing that the founding fathers of the United States of America were overwhelmingly wealthy, white, land-owning slave owners, okay? That's how they made their wealth, all right? And he just kind of glosses over that as if like that's bolstering his position that we should have more people like the founding fathers in positions in government to lead the country, to draft a constitution explicitly outlined to serve their own interests, to serve their own power within the United States government that they were forming at the time. They were slave owners, Ben. I mean, I don't know how you just like kind of gloss over that, or maybe you don't realize the point that you're actually making there, but that's a perfect example of how we could have had an actual like much more democratic system that was put in place that allowed, I don't know, black people to be recognized as human beings instead of as property for these slave owners to profit from and then, use their positions in order to bolster their position and power within the United States of America. I mean, he's just completely glossing over that. The founding fathers that he's describing here, they were slave owners. That's how they got their wealth, Ben. So, I mean, just completely insane that he would just bring that up as if that's like something that's making his point for him when it's kind of doing the exact precise opposite of that. But he continues here.
It's good for them to have an outside source of income. You want to cut down on corruption? It's good for people to be independently wealthy before they are in office. It's not a bad thing. It gives you the ability to say things that are actually on your mind because you have less to lose. This is why, biblically speaking, most of the prophets were actually kind of wealthy. Because if you're wealthy, you don't have much to lose. In any case, Dr. Oz has now come under severe fire. Not a biblical prophet, but a candidate for Pennsylvania. Why? Well, because he was asked about the number of houses that he owns, and he was off.
Okay, he lied about it. All right, he said that he had like 2 or 3 houses or something. Turns out he has like 12 houses across multiple different states and multiple different countries. But that's not even the main point here, okay? He also just glossed over his like prophet comments there and saying that most prophets throughout the major religions in the world were wealthy. That's news to me, Ben, because listen, I mean, probably the overwhelming majority of the people who watch his show are Christians, and so they believe in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior or whatever. This is a guy who was explicitly against, like, fetishizing wealth. This is a guy who like went to the church and flipped over the merchant's table or whatever, right? I mean, this guy who you're talking about here, the main prophet of the major religion of the people who are watching your show, was like fundamentally against exorbitant wealth and displays of wealth within society. He thought that that was against, the religious beliefs that Christians believe in now to this day. I mean, what are you talking about here? Which prophets is he talking about explicitly within either his religion or within, the major religions that are watching his show or that dominate U.S. politics? What are you even talking about there? Most prophets were what, exorbitantly wealthy? Was Jesus Christ like walking around with like, expensive shit on? No, this was a guy whose whole message was we need to help out the most vulnerable and poorest people within society, right? To go help the beggars, to go help, with people who are suffering from disabilities of some sort. That's who Jesus Christ was as a person, right? At least from the biblical perspective, right? I'm not even religious in any way, shape, or form, so it's not my fight to debate what Jesus Christ specifically stood for, but that's the general vibe. And going through, kindergarten through college almost of Christian religious schooling, not exactly somebody who I would describe as being in favor of exorbitant wealth or of, billionaires or millionaires or wealthy people dominating society, especially not in the government. I mean, Jesus Christ himself was literally killed by the state. So, I mean, so many different points that you could make about just that prophet comment alone. But in the broader picture of what he's talking about here, it's completely incoherent, right? He's saying, basically, his fundamental argument here is that because our government is corrupt, all right, he won't tell you why our government is corrupt or who's doing the corrupting, but he's saying because our government is corrupt, therefore, if you have wealthy people who run for office, they won't be beholden to the same, corporate influence or whatever that is corrupting other politicians. But you're missing the main point here, Ben, because the forces that are corrupting our political system in the United States, that's the private sector. Those are the capitalists. Those are the millionaires and the billionaires who are funneling money into our politicians' campaign coffers. Okay, those are the same entities that then offer them these jobs once they leave office as an incentive to serve their interests. So if you have a billionaire like Donald Trump who runs for office and wins the presidency, was he rooting out corruption because he wasn't necessarily beholden to the same degree as other presidents have been to corporate influence because he partially funded his campaign or whatever? No, he was the embodiment of corruption. You're not getting rid of the corruption by having wealthy billionaires and millionaires run for public positions. You are cutting out the middleman of the corruption. Okay, you are taking the corrupting influence, the wealthiest people within society, and instead of having them bribe politicians, you're just putting them directly in the government positions themselves. So, I mean, you're not cutting out the corruption, you are worsening the corruption. And we saw this perfectly demonstrated with somebody like Donald Trump, who claimed to be the guy, I'm going to come in, I'm going to drain the swamp, I'm going to root out all of the corruption within our government. And what did he do? He appointed motherfuckers like Steve Mnuchin, okay, an absolute Wall Street ghoul who used to work for Goldman Sachs and helped tank the economy in 2008, okay? He appointed him to be the Secretary of the Treasury, okay? Every single person he put in a position of power was actively trying to destroy the various government agencies, whether it's the EPA, whether it's the Department of Public Education under Betsy DeVos. Every single person that he appointed was maximally corrupt. And even Donald Trump as an individual was probably the most corrupt president that we've ever had in U.S. history, which is saying a lot because every single president throughout U.S. history has been massively corrupted by private money and by the capitalist class. So somebody like Donald Trump, somebody who's helping the, Saudis with weapons sales while they're staying at his hotels. Somebody who's his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, just took $2 billion from the Saudis as he's actively going and helping and bolstering them and whitewashing their crimes and, again, trying to facilitate further weapons sales, assuming that he takes office again. I mean, this is a guy who was corrupt to his bones, okay? There's a reason why he's facing so many different various investigations. You have the one up in New York about how he almost 100% lied about the evaluations of his various properties in order to avoid taxes. Okay, so this guy is the embodiment of corruption. There's nothing, uncorrupted about him because he happened to be somewhat self-financed, all right? You're not getting rid of the corruption by having wealthy billionaires and millionaires take these government positions. You're cutting out the middleman and going directly to the source of the corruption.